And we're live on YouTube.
Okay. Okay. Good evening and welcome to the Clark Summit Borough Council, November the 27th, 2021. In attendance, we have Ms. Zimmerl,
Present.
Josh Mitchell,
Here.
Bob Shields,
Present.
Ronnie Lopez,
Present.
Herman Johnson, our mayor,
Present.
Kevin Hayes, our solicitor,
Here.
Virginia Kehoe, our borough manager,
Here.
and our junior council member, Ron Thomas. Herman Johnson, Dave Jenkins is going to be absent this evening. So
And Harry's not on yet.
Harry isn't on yet, but we will start without him, and we can certainly give him whatever information he'll need to catch up with us.
Okay.
Okay. The first thing on our agenda, Virginia, is you have the program in front of you.
Yes, public comment, and we have none.
Okay.
So then the second item on our agenda is Councilman Mitchell's request to talk about plowing the senior center.
Correct. Okay. So I'm going to let you lead off on that, Josh. Everybody got the email on the information with the senior center. And I felt that the fact that you're one of our representatives, whatever opinion you feel, you know all the roots of the Abington Joint Rec Board, we certainly would take your opinion on that.
Yeah, I can just kind of go through some of the background on this. So obviously, you know, the AJRB took control of the center last year. I know, and I was a member of the AJRB at the time, but I was not really intimately involved in the transaction. There was a small group of people at the JRB I was obviously aware of what was going on, but was not intimately involved in all the details. You know, I think it's like buying a house. You know, you buy a house and you find things that you didn't anticipate that come up. So, you know, in budgeting for the community center, it wasn't necessarily a line item expense when the borough operated the senior center. Plowing was not necessarily a line item expense because it was just plowed with everything else. So I think it was kind of like a surprise, I think, going through this year, just how much it was going to cost the park to plow the community center. What I was told by Mark Spatz, who is a South Abington resident and is the co-chair of the JRB, is that it's going to be about $5,000 this year. And so in a conversation with him, this is probably a couple weeks ago now, in a conversation with him, you know, he suggested to me that, you know, would I be willing to ask the borough if they might help out with that. And so that was the nexus of this. I had reached out to Virginia and we had a little back and forth, and it came here. So as I said in the email, I mean, you know, we contribute to the park, obviously. The lion's share of the park's budget comes from the contributions of the 5 municipalities, of whom we are the second largest. It's a pretty slim budget that the park runs on. And so when, you know, when expenses like that come up, you know, there's not an extensive general fund to cover them out of. So we're covering it for now, but it's definitely something that, you know, I have an interest to see if the borough can help defray some of that cost by helping out with the plowing. And I mentioned in that email that, you know, the main lots in the park, for example, on the other side of the street, those are plowed by South Abington Township. You know, there are ways beyond just the contributions that the 5 municipalities make that they support the park. So that's the nexus of the request and a little bit of context.
Who's been plowing it so far, Josh? Did they have a contractor or somebody that was coming in?
There's a contractor. I'm not certain who it is. I think it's $350 every time they're there. So that is, I could find out who the contractor is because I'm not certain, but there is somebody that's engaged to do that.
Okay.
Josh, just so, because I was deeply involved in the unwinding of the agreement
Yeah.
and having it transferred over to the rec board. So, just by way of history, and not to get into every detail, but the center was built with Clark Summit's block grant money, and in like 1994, I want to say, Jerry,
Right.
and was was maintained by Clark Summit all of those years after. So anytime there's a new kitchen had to be, anything with the kitchen had to be repaired, the borough did it. All the repairs were done by the borough. So we, certainly carried our share for the last 25 years. We did do an inspection report before we transferred it over to the rec board and identified what the specific issues were, which was the roof, the sidewalks, nothing major. And so, I don't think, and I'm not saying you are, I don't think you should ever feel that Clark Summit hasn't carried its load with regards to the park,
Sure.
because we certainly have for many, many years. It was difficult getting it transferred over to the rec board because one municipality was holding out. But in the event that the borough wants to determine, and this is a policy decision for you all, wants to plow, I just would want some type of agreement in place between us and the rec board, because we're going outside our borough. So if there's if there's some type of damage or accident on non-borough property, I just want to make sure that they're not going to sue us, or not saying they would, or that anybody will sue us, because we might not have all of the protections that we normally would for sovereign immunity when we're doing work outside the borough. That would be my recommendation. If we're going to do that, have an agreement in place. And and the only other thing I could think of is, is there any other nonprofits that are going to be coming forward now and saying, well, can you please plow my, can you plow my parking lot? That's my only concern there too. But I understand where you're coming from, Josh, and I think the rec board does an incredible job, and that's why we're so enthusiastic in transferring it over to them basically free. The building is in really good shape. I think it's a real asset. So, my recommendation is, if we're going, I'm gonna be honest, I would have some concerns doing this, because I don't know if it opens the door for future requests for other people to do it. But if we're going to do it, I would say let's have an agreement in place so that we're protected.
Actually, I was kind of thinking the same as Kevin. The one thing I would recommend is maybe if we're not doing the plowing, maybe we could give a financial contribution. I guess there's $5,000 that's needed. There's 5 municipalities. Maybe we could give $1,000 and the other municipalities could maybe give money. I think that's a lot easier than taking on the responsibility of plowing in the future and doing it this year, and also the legal liability. And I also thought it was the same with Kevin, is that there's also going to be a lot of nonprofits that are going to be hurting, and I'm sure they would love to have free plowing from the borough or from the other townships. So I'm worried that might set a precedent that could be hard to turn back.
Well, and I agree with you 100% on that, Bob. The only thing is, in our agreement, I think we would have to specify that because we are a member of the Abington Joint Rec Board, we have 3 reps on behalf of Clark Summit, and a possibility, Josh, that we could do a year-to-year contract, so that as it rolls over, it will give us an idea of what our cost factor is in doing the plowing, so to maybe at this point, if this is something Virginia would agree with, we could do the plowing for them. Is the building being used at all, or?
Yeah, it is. The county AAA is in there every day. I think all they're really doing right now is distributing food. They weren't doing that for the first couple weeks of January. I believe they got it back in there starting last week. So they're in there Monday through Friday still. And there is the Joint Rec Board's reorganization meeting is tomorrow, and so I can broach this subject then, and if we are open-minded to supporting in some capacity, I can bring it up. We can have a conversation and maybe over the next week before we have our regular meeting, bring something back. But I think, I want to make clear that in essence, and Hillside Park is really unique. And Kevin, you might know this better, but I don't think there are many such, charters like that, even in the whole state. It's very unique. I mean, we essentially are one of 5 owners of the park, if you think of it that way, with the other municipalities. So it's really, it's ours as much as it is. Yes, it's a nonprofit organization, the JRB, that runs it, but it really is ours. And that's why, I think the request makes sense. It's really fundamentally different than, another organization that might come to us.
And I think probably, Josh, with the pandemic setting in last year, a lot of the baseball and a lot of the groups that help support the park weren't able to do it. So I'm sure they took a financial hit.
Well, it's funny. To be honest with you, it's actually a little bit of the reverse, because the normal tenants, and one of the things that I do as part of the JRB is I really manage the 2 fields, the turf field and the upper field. And so when somebody wants to reserve those and whatnot, I handle all that. The rental income was probably higher in 2020 than it was in 2019, because the normal users were not on it. And so therefore we were able to rent it to other groups that wanted it. I don't think that's really a good thing for the Abingtons, but it's just what happened.
Virginia, I think you have some background noise.
Okay, let me check into it. What am I doing here?
So if there is, an open-mindedness to it, then I think, the details we can explore a little further. And I can bring this subject up tomorrow night, and then we can, reconnect over the next week.
Yeah. And Josh, first of all, I think that the whole setup is the envy of the area in terms of recreational facilities for the youth, and it's phenomenal. And Bill Reese and Greg Pascal, you got yourself have really top-notch people who are dedicating their time. The only thing, and I know our residents would be mindful of this, whatever we offer, we just hope that it's across the board, because one particular municipality has not carried their weight with regard to their contributions to the rec board. And we certainly have given much more than our share. So we just want to make sure that when whatever we're committing to, that it's, I think this, I don't have a vote, but my recommendation would be to make sure that we're ensuring that there's parity, that everybody has some skin in the game. Because I know there was a number of years where one municipality wouldn't even pay its dues.
Right.
So I just want to, and meanwhile, we are pouring tons and tons of money into the senior center. And so, yeah, that would be the one thing I'd be mindful of.
Yeah.
The one thing I would want to just put in here is, if we're going to do this and we're going to have an agreement, I just need it spelled out that and understood that our priority is our roads. So
Sure.
we wouldn't do, like, obviously you wouldn't need us to plow on overtime. If it's the middle of the night, you don't need us to plow anyway. But during business hours, we have to make sure the roads are passable before they would send a plow over there. So we can't guarantee, and we'd want to make sure that your tenants understand that there's not a guarantee that plowing would be done before 9 a.m.
Right.
And the other thing is just clarifying, does it also involve, like we normally did the shoveling too? Are they going to shovel and we just need to plow, or do we need to shovel too? So
that actually came up. I believe the contractor right now is also shoveling, but that came up in the context of all of this in the past week. The idea that, there's no reason the tenants can't shovel, or that we can't get somebody else to shovel. Plowing is the thing that requires equipment.
Right.
That's true.
Sure. Yeah, I'm not adverse to it. I just want to make sure that the DPW isn't torn from the roads in an effort to make sure that that place is open for 9 AM.
Right.
One
John,
And again, I don't want to be like nitpicky on this stuff. It's just, it was such a battle over that senior center. Does the area on aging, do they, or does the county, do they do any plowing with regard to the other senior centers that they have in the county?
I don't know the answer to that. I could try to find out.
Yeah.
I think it's, I mean, they pay rent, and that's basically all, I think, all that they do at the Hillside Community Center. I don't know the nature of their relationship with other.
Yeah, because I know they have they have a senior center in West Grantham. They have one in Taylor, and I'd be interested to see if they were willing to, if they plow there, if they'd be willing to plow here. Obviously, it's to protect their seniors.
Yeah.
and it does
bring
make
that
a big
up.
difference. The senior center was, they closed down last January, and a lot of people were very disappointed with that. How
Sure.
is the lease? How long is the lease? I mean, is this a term that could be renegotiated, or is it do you have any idea how long it is, or?
I do not off the top of my head, but I could try to find that out as well. I mean, I believe it's, we're not talking about, I don't think a 1 or 2 year agreement here. It's a longer term agreement as far as I know, but I don't have that at the tip of my fingers.
Well, you know what, Josh, if you would just like to relay back to the committee, Park Summit Borough has a strong interest in doing whatever we can that's going to help with the senior center, as far as an agreement will have to be drawn up, but we're definitely not throwing our hands up in the air and saying, no, we don't want to get on. We definitely
Sure.
want to help out in any way we can. So.
Yeah, that's very fair. I'll try to get answers to some of those questions and circle back, and we can have, we can try to brainstorm through what makes the most sense here.
Okay. Sounds good. And then you can just get back to Virginia and myself, and
Sure.
of course, Kevin and any other council members. Virginia can send an email out as to what direction we feel.
Yeah, I assume that we would probably, based on what happens with the reorganization of the Joint Rec Board, we'll probably pick up this discussion next week for a potential vote one way or the other.
Okay. I would
Okay.
think so too. Okay. Thank you for all your good work on that, Josh. We appreciate it. Thank
Pleasure. Thank you.
you. Okay, the next item on our agenda, Virginia, is
The correspondence we received from Mr. Blau, and everyone did see the emails. I don't know if they saw the email that came out this evening, but Jerry, maybe you want to give everyone an update as to what you've done.
yeah. Our big concern was the wire that was hanging. We didn't know if it was PP&L, Frontier, or one of the cable companies. So at any rate, when we did get the email from the family, I did go, Virginia did talk to our DPW. They went up, the wire was hanging. They were able to coil it up and strap it to the pole so that the wire is now not a danger to anybody. And I stopped in, I talked to the family, I let them know. They were grateful. They said that we at least took care of it. And I told them that we're going to do, we've got to come up with some kind of an agreement with the utilities that they have so much time to correct a problem. If not, we don't want the borough to be liable, and they would also suffer a financial penalty for not correcting it. And so we're just going to hopefully be able to vote on this next week, Virginia.
Well, I don't know if we're going to be ready to vote on it, yes, next week. But just so everyone knows, this wire started sagging in front of their house. Actually, I think it's been a couple of months now. And we've called the utilities, the comm center has called the utilities, our DPW has been out, our police have been out, the homeowners have tried calling. What they've determined is it's not a power line. PP&L responds immediately. It was not one of their lines. Once we get down to where it's either Frontier or Comcast, If that's not affecting their service, they don't rush out. And so this wire, and the only reason the problem is solved today is because this was sagging down to the ground. Somebody in the past couple of days cut the wire. So as a result, our DPW was able to coil it up and attach it to the poles. But if it were still hanging, we'd have the situation where, do we pull it down or cut it? In which case, if we caused any damage, we'd be liable to that utility for damaging their thing. Or do we continue to let it just hang there as a risk? You know, so it really put us in a predicament, and it's not the first time. The utilities, the phone and cable company do not respond with any speed. And I'm literally talking months with hanging wires if it's not disrupting their service. And that, so it's a concern, and it's just, how do we want to deal with this going forward? We got lucky in this case. Lucky after a couple months, but
So
you know.
Virginia, this is Frontier in this instance, right?
This particular case, it turned out it was Frontier's wire, yes.
So I have a letter I wrote from me, just, notifying them of the situation and asking them to address it immediately because of the safety issues, and also that it detracts from the property value or the aesthetic use or value of the properties. What I could include in that is just say we want a meeting, maybe with me and you, just to say, to address this. This has been an ongoing problem, and we want it addressed. So that we have a strategy for responding to future incidents like this.
If I had contact names and phone numbers, it'd be great.
Right.
But to have to call 1-800 Comcast, you don't know how impossible it is just to get somebody on the phone.
Oh, I know.
Then to explain to them it's not my account I'm calling about. It's incredible. And then they don't come out anyway. So, all right, I think that sounds good. Let's do that. In fact, I think we should send a letter to Comcast as well, notifying them that we want a contact information. Let's see what happens. If it comes from you, I think it might get a reaction.
Because I think, unfortunately, and I have to research this, we're somewhat restricted in what we can do in regulating them through an ordinance, or because they're controlled by the Utility Commission, the PUC. So in other words, we can't say, I don't think we can fine them. I don't know that we can hold up, anything with them, but I'll look into it if it's possible. But my instinct is that it's not possible. So.
Okay. So you and I will talk about this more tomorrow. We'll get that letter out to the utilities and see where it goes.
Good, okay.
So, and Mr.
Thank you, Jerry, for doing that today. Thank you very much.
Oh, you're welcome. Well, they are a very nice family, and they were very grateful. They said that we really got right on top of it and took care of it. So.
And that was very close to the elementary school too. I know right where that was hanging, so that was dangerous.
It was, exactly. So other than that, and we have our ice festival coming up the weekend of February the 13th and 14th. And Jean Bevilacqua, she's the
Janice Bevilacqua.
Or Janice, I mean. She's the president of the ABPA, and she's looking into a spot right across from Our Lady of Snows Church where Sonia's was, for us to be able to sell our containers of chili or whatever. This is the money we raise for our Christmas lights. So if anybody would like to volunteer, I make the chili, but if anybody wants to volunteer to hop in, we're always looking for volunteers. And also, I mentioned to Virginia that we're going to send an email to CBS and see if they would be interested in doing the weekend of the Ice Festival, the vaccine on their property. We're going to have a lot of people coming into the borough, and this would be a good spot for CVS to get some notoriety too. So if it works, fine. If not, we'll. But Other than that, I guess they've sold over 30 ice carvings, so they're all hometown heroes, so
That's right.
going in a real good direction, so.
What time does it start on the 13th? Or the,
To be honest, I'm not sure. It'll be out. They're gonna do a lot of publicity on it, Kevin, so I never asked that question, but at any rate,
Usually the ice blocks are delivered on Thursday, and when the stores and the businesses open up on Friday, you
Right.
start to see the flow. They're not doing all of the events that they've done in the past. I know that they've asked to have the side of the building barricaded off the evenings of the 3 days. So, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. So that will happen at night, but beyond that, I don't think their schedule's going to be online and it'll be in the paper, but
right,
I don't know that there's a time that it starts per se.
sure.
Oh,
Okay,
one thing I did notice, we were discussing last time regarding the tractor trailers on Sleepy Hollow. I
oh,
don't know, is that something we could put on the agenda maybe for the next
right,
meeting? I had an opportunity to speak with some of the people on Sleepy Hollow, and they said it's the sign they would need would be on West Grove Street. They don't need one on Jefferson. None of the tractor trailers were coming in that way.
okay.
And I think we were, just to save some money on an ordinance, we were going to see if there's any other
right.
streets in Clark Summit. So I'm not sure if Chief Yarns can maybe give us some guidance on that at the next meeting, or,
That's a good idea.
okay.
Okay, yeah, that's a great recommendation. Thank you, Bob.
Right, and the goal would be to identify them all now so that we could incorporate them in one ordinance.
Okay,
Okay,
Thank you.
I'll reach out to Chief Yards on that.
okay, thank you. And God bless you there.
Thank you.
I think our junior council member wanted to address council, Ron Thomas.
Yes, I did. Thank you, Madam President. As you all know, I was absent from the first scheduled meeting on the day of January 6th, and on that day, there was an insurrection at the U.S. Capitol building. Thousands of domestic terrorists rioted through the halls of the Capitol, putting the lives of every member of Congress and their staff at risk. I couldn't get myself to indulge the events that were occurring just before my eyes. And less than 2 weeks later, my mother woke me up with a newspaper. She has me read an article about a local white supremacist right here in our borough. It scares me to know that white supremacy exists as a young Black man, but for one to be right in the same borough as me, it scares me half to death. I just want myself, my family, and every other minority in the town to be safe. And I believe that the police should be more active in our community in the need of an emergency. Our local police already does a phenomenal job, but I honestly would be lying if I said that they weren't doing enough. I just think that we should definitely have more cops up and down the streets in our area, especially along State Street and along Northern Boulevard as well, because a lot of traffic goes up and down through there too. But I just think that we should definitely have more security up and down the streets, because there's the town is a population of 5,300, I believe, and there's obviously not that many minorities in the town. I just want all of us to be safe. The past year has been a really tough year for all of us, with the pandemic, the racial violence that have been occurring, and I just think that small steps could really help make our community much more safer with our minorities in our borough.
Well, you know what? I thank you for all your excellent comments on that, Ron. Our mayor, I'm certain, is going to talk to our chief about this and see what direction they want to go. But if there's a possibility, you probably still don't have the article, but if you could remember the date or whatever, they could maybe find it online or something like that.
I have it right next to me.
Oh, okay.
I have it right next.
What's the date? What's the date of the paper?
It was on the Sunday Times and it was Sunday, January 17th.
117, okay. And what page was that on?
It
That-
was the on the very first page.
Oh, on the
That
front
was the
page,
Scranton Times.
okay.
I think it was an article, Madam President, with Chris Kelly.
Ellie, yes.
Yes,
Oh,
it was.
But Ron, this is Mayor Johnson. We are aware of it, and we are increasing our patrols in that area, and we have other departments checking on it too. But getting back to what happened in Washington, D.C., we had a meeting with Lackawanna County Sheriff's Department and the Police Department down there for intelligence update reports. And we are trying to do the best we can, but I will definitely talk to the chief and get further information. But I don't want you or anybody else to feel that you're not safe in our lovely borough, because we are safe. And if you look at our police reports, you can see we don't have that many domestic violence acts. We don't have disorderly acts and stuff like that. But we are very, very vigilant on what our police department do. And the chief is doing a commendable job.
oh, no doubt about that. Thank you, Mayor.
You're welcome.
Okay, does anybody else have any questions for Ron, our junior council member? Okay,
May I make one more comment, Madam President? Madam President,
yes, go ahead, Ron.
may I make one more comment? How is the security also at our borough building? I know the Scranton, the town of Scranton building, they leveled up their security after the attacks at the Capitol building, along with the other state capitals as well. Because I know that they were working with the county, I believe, or the state, one of the two.
Yeah.
Yeah, the borough building's in lockdown. We are not open to the public. The police department and the borough offices, if somebody needed to see us, and there are reasons why people would have to, we will do an appointment. But otherwise, the front door and the elevators are locked, and the general public cannot just walk in. They need an appointment, and there's only a few of those that really have legitimate reasons to do so.
Was that
And the building is
effective
closed.
after the attacks, or just COVID as a?
That started with
Oh, I'm sorry,
COVID,
ma'am.
actually, and it's still been in effect. You guys, when we
Okay.
met at the beginning of January, you weren't here, but at our meeting in January, we talked about extending it, and the council gave me the permission to keep it extended as long as we feel it's necessary.
And also,
Okay.
Ron, for your information is our borough office, the glass window. Oh, is that background music or whatever? But anyway, we have, it's a bulletproof glass that protects our borough office. So anybody that would come up to the borough, if they tried to even shoot through it, they couldn't, you know? And of course, our police downstairs, they're equally as protected, but we feel very secure. We've installed stainless steel doors. So the borough office is again, very well protected. So we feel confident there at any rate. But thank you for your
Okay.
concern. No, that,
Appreciate your concern, Ron. Thank you.
sure.
Thank you, Ron.
No
Thank you.
problem. No problem.
Okay. Okay. Does anybody have any other questions for any councilman or our solicitor, our borough manager, or our mayor? Well, then this meeting is going to be adjourned evidently.
All right, we will see you all next Wednesday.
Okay, and Josh, keep us up to date on that
Right.
and let us know where we can jump right in.
I will.
Okay.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Okay.
Good night, all.
Good night.
Bye,
Thank you.
Good night,
everybody.
everybody.
Good
Good night.
evening.
Good night.
Everyone be
Thank you.
safe.
Good night.
Thank you. Bye-bye.